okay, like how can we actually detect that there are certain things that are generated by AI, and then simply have a big bright label on there and says this is AI content, so people have that immediate frame of reference before they watch it, that they know it's not real, it's not something that happened organically, or that that it's not something that someone did.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Matthew Krayton. Matt is the founder of Publicis, a consultancy specializing in public relations, public affairs, and strategy designed for the digital age. His unique perspective seamlessly blends politics with emerging technology. And notably, Matt played a pivotal role in some specific election projects, such as President Joe Biden's viral We Just Did Hat. So this is just one of small project. So Matthew, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So I believe that we will have a very thoughtful conversation on the topic of the age of AI and safeguarding our electoral process in Western civilization, as we say, because you're based in the United States, I'm based in Europe, but the challenges are the same. But before that, could you tell us a short story about yourself, or about your career path, and what brought you to where you are right now, and what you guys in Publicis are up to these days?
Sure, absolutely. So, as you noted, I'm the founder and principal at Publicis, and so we're a full service public affairs, public relations, strategic communications consultancy, based in the U.S. So I am in New Jersey right now. We have offices in Philadelphia, Washington, and Wilmington, Delaware. I got my start somewhat by chance in politics. So I graduated from university, and like many people, were trying to figure out what to do with my life. Always had an interest in politics. Had an opportunity in grad school to work for a public opinion polling institute at the university that I went to, where they conducted public opinion surveys on various issues that mattered to New Jersey residents, but then also some national issues as well. So I got my sort of first taste of the practice of politics and communications and understanding public opinion there. And then fast forward a couple of years, ended up working on a couple of campaigns, and then just continued doing it from there. So now, in addition to doing some political work, still we have a large portfolio of private sector clients and nonprofits, where we help executives executives and leaders sort of manage some of the most pressing communications issues that they have. So whether that's reputational risk, or positioning and branding, or figuring out how to speak about hot button issues. So we've really expanded beyond the political sphere, but still keep one foot firmly planted in that world.
Mm-hmm. All right. So as artificial intelligence continues to advance, its impact on our electoral systems becomes increasingly profound. And from the spread of disinformation to the integrity of voting systems, AI presents both opportunities and challenges for modern democracies. But in this episode, we would like to understand the threats posed by AI and explore strategies to protect our elections, and discuss with you the future of AI regulations in maintaining security and the democratic process. So let's start with understanding AI's impact. How have the rise of AI changed the landscape of our electoral process?
Sure, absolutely. So I think it's actually useful to look at some lower tech methods of influencing elections and creating problems for democracies around the world. So if you look back at the last couple of years, both in the United States and abroad, bad actors have been able to leverage existing technologies like social media, messaging apps, and other things like that to spread misinformation and really use the algorithms that these platforms employ to distribute content to amplify some of these things that are either false or mischaracterized or provide an incorrect impression of a candidate or party in different places. So misinformation, disinformation is not new. In fact, if you look back even further, in the United States, we had like yellow journalism, for example, where people purchased newspapers to accomplish just that, right? Is to create impressions that of particular issues or candidates that differ from reality. So this has been going on for a while. The issue is the scale at which now information can spread, scale and speed. So we've seen that over the last couple of years, and as the speed and scale of information distribution through these various social media channels and tech platforms has proliferated, our ability as consumers of news, consumers of information, has not necessarily kept up with that. It kept up with that speed, right? So it's very hard for human beings to evaluate the sheer volume of information that's coming at them at any given time. So typically, we're making judgments in just milliseconds about what we're seeing. Does this thing how does this information make me feel? How am I responding? Do I believe this information to be real? Does it confirm a pre-existing belief that I have? Does it tap into some pre-existing belief that other people have? So there are a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of years that have sort of accelerated that. So looking at again how misinformation, disinformation has spread, then you factor in AI, which provides another layer of complexity to this, right? So you can do quite a bit of damage without AI, as I just noted. But with some of these tools that exist, especially generative AI, you're able to create facsimiles of real people and generate content that is entirely false and fabricated. You can essentially take someone's voice. So there was a case recently in the United States where I believe a political consultant took President Biden's voice and cloned it using an AI tool, and then sent out what we call robocalls, which are automated telephone calls to landlines, telling people to vote on a day that was not election day, like vote a day after election day, right? And so that person was caught and is going to most likely suffer legal consequences. But the point remains is, he was able to leverage that technology in order to spread misinformation in a way that's credible. So, are we at a point now where AI is indistinguishable from organically produced content, photographs, videos, audio? Not quite, but again, we process things so quickly that it's hard for people to separate. So once you see something that sort of confirms a pre-existing belief that you may have, then it's very hard to move off of it, and to move people off of that belief and get them to refocus on reality. So I think at a very high level, those are the issues that we are going to run into with artificial intelligence, is sort of on the generative AI side in the near term. In the long term, the processing ability of these tools is only getting even more effectively manipulative of people's emotions and perceptions of different things. So I think that may be what's coming next. Again, not to give anyone any ideas about how to use these things in a way that would be inappropriate, but I think it's up to all of us to be cognizant of the fact that these risks do exist in the world. I mean, and it expands beyond even the political sphere. I mean, if you're looking at the corporate sphere, imagine having a publicly traded company and you have the voice of a CEO saying something that negative about that company's prospects, right? So you queue that up and then you short the stock and you let it rip. And so I mean the risks exist across the spectrum, across the public sphere.
Absolutely. There are some good examples of this both in the political and the business sphere. So, what specific measures can governments and businesses, maybe just electoral bodies, implement to safeguard elections against AI-driven threats?
So I think there are a couple of things. So the first is recognizing that there is in fact a threat, and then moving quickly to really try to understand the technology to the extent that is possible, right? So typically uh, government is by design in some ways can be a bit slow in responding to different things, and that works in most cases, right? It's a deliberative process where you're processing a bunch of different viewpoints and opinions and policy positions on things, and you're synthesizing that into ultimately what becomes law in many cases. But as technology continues to improve and accelerate, innovation continues to accelerate. I think governments need to try to adapt to that and move quickly on figuring out how to regulate some of these platforms in a way that makes sense. Now, there are plenty of positive applications that you can use AI for, even in the electoral space, right? Like AI is not all evil. If you use it the right way, it can be used to help get real information out there. It can be used to help augment volunteer hours on campaigns and things like that. But I think, well, what we have to be cognizant of is, okay, how can we develop a set of regulations that will protect against the worst use cases for AI? So some of that includes, I think, at the government level, clear labeling of content. So really working with platforms to set up a regime that essentially detects AI generated content, and then clearly labels that in a way that is obvious to people, right? So I think some investment even in technology, right, on a government side of, okay, like how can we actually detect that there are certain things that are generated by AI, and then simply have a big bright label on there and says this is AI content, so people have that immediate frame of reference before they watch it, that they know it's not real, it's not something that happened organically, or that that it's not something that someone did. So I think that that is a big piece of the puzzle. The second piece is really, especially in the private sector and in the individual sort of campaign or organizational level, is you really have to invest in a plan. Plan for the worst case scenario, right? Like, what if this happens to me? Let's dream up the worst possible thing, and then run a fire drill on that, right? And really understand how are we going to respond to this if the time comes. Hopefully it doesn't, but if the time comes, how can we respond to this? I think part of it is investing in bolstering your brand equity among your audience, right? So being proactive and developing a reputation ahead of time, I think is very helpful in being prophylactic against some of the worst case scenarios. The other thing too is, again, working with like third party validators that can come in and speak on your behalf as well. It's, well, like, this person never said this, or here's the character of this candidate or this executive or this organization, and this AI stuff that was generated that's completely false and misleading. So I think there are a bunch of different things, but I mean, planning is the biggest thing I think organizations, leaders can think about right now, is like, okay, if this happens to us, like with any crisis, right? You should be ready for any kind of crisis, and exercise that muscle repeatedly, because if you're not expecting it, then you're going to get caught flat-footed and have a big problem.
Mm-hmm. So let's discuss about the public awareness and education. How can we improve this awareness and the potential misuse of AI in elections, and educate voters to be more discerning about the information they encounter?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think number one is school curricula in many places has not caught up. So I'm talking about primary school, secondary school, public education in most places has not caught up to the technology that we have at our fingertips every day, and the technology that we carry in our pockets every day. So when I was in high school, secondary school, I could not have conceived of uh, having as much computing power in my pocket as I do today. So, and I'm not that old, right? So, like, I am of the generation where my senior year in high school, Facebook was starting to roll out to university students, right? So we sort of had one foot in the new world and one foot in the old world. And the old world, right? Like we would have desktop computers or really these like big clunky laptops at home. They never worked properly, right? Like they would always freeze up, or you'd have some sort of computer virus. You know, the internet, when you plugged in the telephone cord, would make that horrible dial-up sound. So looking at that technology, right, that's what we grew up with, and there wasn't really a need in school to educate students deeply on how to use that technology, because it was pretty straightforward. There wasn't, you had access to Encyclopedia Britannica, for example, on your desktop, and limited access to the internet where you could browse, but there wasn't a ton of information coming at you every second in the form of video content or algorithmically driven content. So really, like all we learned in school was how to type, right? That was the big thing. It's like, we're going to teach you how to type, and that was fine. But now students have to contend with, again, this huge fire hose of information coming at them in their pockets, in their phones, right? So you can pull this device out of your pocket and scroll for hours and get just this flood of information. So I think providing a curriculum at that level to help foster better media literacy, I think makes a lot of sense in those cases, right? So like, here's how you consume, here's how you fact check, here's how you do research, here's how you find the real story, and that doesn't have to be biased in any way. It just gives people um, and would give students the tools that they need to pause before they make a judgment about something. So pause, check it out, take a second look at it, and then move on. So I think number one, start early and embed some sort of media literacy curriculum in schools. The second piece is public education campaigns. Like I really genuinely believe that even beyond that, like, we're all adults, and we all could, I think, benefit from continued media literacy training or information, right? Like, here is how, like, awareness is one of the best things. Like, here is how bad actors seek to use these platforms to influence your vote, your choices, your opinions on things, and here's how to spot them. And I think that's very helpful too. And then here's how you make an informed decision. And it's not telling people to vote one way or the other. It's saying, here's how you can get the facts with all of the information coming at you. Here's how you get the facts. And here's how human psychology works too. I think being able to label that and say to people, for example, people are much more likely to share content if it makes them angry rather than happy or content. Now, funny or unexpected, people will share those types of things as well. But really, anger is a huge driver of the spread of content, right? If it makes you angry, you're going to share it. So giving people the tools to recognize that they are angry when they're consuming something, and that your impulse to share this thing is coming from the fact that you feel angry in this moment, that it whatever this is, whatever you're seeing, is hitting on a pre-existing belief that you had about a particular topic or issue or candidate. So just take a step back before you share it and look into it a little bit deeper, right? So I think, just labeling those things and simply giving people the tools and information they need to understand how our own brains work. Because oftentimes, like, there's so much going on in a given day that we're just automatically making a lot of decisions and doing certain things without even really thinking about it. It's all subconscious. So that's where I would start. Is start with school, and then really invest heavily in public education on these things.
All right, fantastic. Matt, I would like to ask you a personal point of view. What is the major misconception in the field of AI and the electoral process and all the safeguarding issues that you kind of strongly disagree with?
So I think one of the interesting things that we're seeing right now as some of these new technologies emerge is that not everything is necessarily AI that we're seeing. Some of it is just simply advanced sort of computer logic, if then type statements, or type programming in certain places, machine learning, which isn't AI in the traditional sense of the word. So I think uh, being able to develop clear definitions of what we're talking about when we're talking about AI, generative AI, LLMs, large language models, is super important. So I wouldn't say that there's one broad misconception. I would say that it's right now the entire industry is a little bit of the Wild West, and it's hard to parse out exactly, what is AI, what's not AI, what should we actually be taking a look at in terms of regulation. Are there certain things that maybe we don't need to be so worried about? So I think those are the big open questions rather than sort of misconceptions about AI.
Mhm. And looking toward the future, what trends or developments do you anticipate in the terms of this AI regulation, the impact of our democracy process and electoral process?
So I'll lean on what I hope will happen is that I hope that democracies around the world truly take a hard look at investing in maintaining democracy, meaning maintaining an information environment where people can make informed decisions about who they vote for, what parties they're voting for, and then have the ability to cast their vote without barriers, and then have the ability to and have confidence that the folks who are voted in or voted out will abide by those results. So my hope is that as it comes to AI, people will and policymakers will take a good hard look at, okay, what can we do in these spaces quickly enough in order to maintain those principles of self-government, right? Like, what can we do to make sure that, again, we preserve, or at least not necessarily preserve, but improve the information environment so that people can make those informed decisions to the extent that they can, and then move forward. So my hope is that there's a realization that this is important and it's good for everybody, no matter what political side of the political spectrum you're on. It is good for everybody to make sure that we have a level playing field, and that you cannot use these technologies in an unfair or manipulative sort of way. So I would say that is what I would hope to see going forward. Now, in terms of prognosticating about what will happen, we've definitely seen some uh, I don't want to say lack of political will, but a diminished political will to move quickly on certain things or focus on other issues, which is important. I mean, there are a lot of things that we need to focus on, but I do worry that there may not be the attention or political will to actually carry forward a regime of common sense regulation that will enable the safe use of AI. Which, again, I think AI can be a tool for good, largely. But we just have to make sure that we set up the system so that the incentives are there to use it for good, and not for bad purposes.
Mhm. Awesome. So, if we summarize our interview for those who listening would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways, what would it be?
I would say, like, in sort of the practice of managing risk, I would say it is a good exercise to go through the technologies that exist today, really try to develop some baseline understanding of what is out there and what is possible, and then develop a plan based on what you see, and how your organization would react in the event that an AI tool or really any of these sort of algorithms are turned against you in some way or another. So I would say planning is worth its weight in gold. You always have to plan, try to look a few steps ahead. You're not always going to catch everything or be able to predict every move, but going through that exercise is going to be extraordinarily important, rather than waiting for something bad to happen.
Fantastic. So that's all my questions. Perhaps if you would like to add something to our audience that is important that I forgot to ask you, if there is anything.
No, I mean, I think again, this is a pretty exciting time for technology, for people who are in communications, again, because we can amplify so many good things with artificial intelligence and some of these other platforms. So I do think that there is a lot of good to be had and a lot of upside to be had with these advances in technology. We just have to be careful about how we approach using these things, and really focus on, and again, maintaining or improving the information environment overall for the good of our future. Because without democracy, I don't think you can make progress on a lot of things that we need to make progress on. So that's where I would leave it.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Matt, and I wish you a great success, and your company, Publicis, very healthy growth. And you're waiting a very hot time this year with this election campaign in the United States. So we're listening all maybe something new, not on the head, but something new campaign that will be of interest to our listeners.
It's going to be quite busy. That is for sure. So no shortage of information on that. Yep.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you.